Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrea Wicklund. I work at Valve, and I've been there about almost 10 years now. Did we get the fog machine set up? No? The fog machine? Okay, well, I have a clicker at least. I'm here to talk to you about the art of communication, decoding the creative relationship. I know that's very elusive, but we'll get into it a little bit and you'll see what I mean. How many people here have played the game of Pictionary? Raise your hand. Yeah, lots of people. For those of you with your hands raised, how many of you have been kicked off a game of Pictionary? Really? It's not just me? Really? Well, yeah, I have. I've been kicked off of Pictionary before. It was kind of an ego-driven story. It was high school. But I did. I walked in with an ego, with my team. We're all pretty young, but I was the artist. And so, it was about to go down. And I admit we were crushing it. I was up there drawing, my team was getting answers right. And until this one point when I was doing this, what I thought was a pretty epic drawing, and my team wasn't getting the answer. Kept drawing, the clock ran out, the buzzer rang, we didn't get the point. And I kind of lost it. I was kind of a jerk to my team, but rightfully so. It was their fault for this breach in communication. And so that was fine, whatever, game goes on. Do you remember the TV sitcom Friends? I mean, don't be embarrassed. Do you? Yes. Do you remember Monica? Okay, if you don't know Monica, thank you for being brave. If you don't remember Monica, she was notorious for being really competitive and kind of pushy. Well, anyway, as the story goes, the more points the other team scored, the more I started to lose my composure. I really started to be a jerk to my team. So what did they do? They fired me. I was banned from Pictionary. They kicked me off. And I admit I was being a diva, which made the breakdown in communication amongst my team unsolvable. I still haven't played Pictionary to this day. Enough with friends. Let's talk about communication, which is why you are here today. Luckily for me, I learned early on from that experience that nobody wants to work with the diva, beginning my exploration into the art of communication, which is why you are here today, in case you didn't know. So in putting this talk together, I spoke with people from various companies of various disciplines, ranging from Joaquin Holmer at Neat Company, Carla Ortiz at Marvel, Jed Chevrier at HoloLens, Trent Custers and Ty Carey at League of Geeks, Merrick Bogdan at Playdead, and a few of my coworkers at Valve, including Dean Tate, who worked on BioShock 1 and 2, who is our new acquisition at Valve, so congratulations to you. So I'm going to get straight to the punch and tell you the secret, the answer to all of your problems with communication. And that is who. Being able to choose who you work with is the ticket to great communication. So consider that you yourself are a great catch off the bat, and you get to choose who you work with. Problem solved. But there are a couple parts to this who that I'm talking about: skill level and personality. So skill is pretty straightforward, so let's just assume that you've got that on your radar. You're surrounded by a lot of people who are skilled in their disciplines, different levels of wizardry, so you don't have to worry about that. With that in mind, let's talk about personality. In other words, affinity. Affinity is a natural liking for or attraction to a person, a thing, or an idea, a close resemblance or a connection. Talent is very important, but you need to get along first. Find a good fit over raw talent. So it's kind of like a nice pair of Nikes. You know the performance is going to be good, but if you buy the wrong size, you're going to get blisters, shoes are going to fall off, you're going to feel like scrunched in your feet. Yes, I just compared hiring people to buying a pair of shoes. I know there's at least one person in here who appreciates that. So someone who inspires, boosts morale, has a positive outlook, is realistic, is just a good communicator. Find those things and you are set up for excellent communication amongst your team. This is why the hiring process at Valve is of utmost importance. So here's a story, success story, non-Valve, based off of what I just said. Neat company. I talked to one of the guys there, and he actually couldn't give me an example of communication breakdown, because I really wanted to get a good story so I could tell you guys like a funny, epic fail, but he didn't have any. And I thought, how is that possible? Well, first of all, it's a small team to start, and they knew each other from school. So they had like an Insta affinity. They knew each other's strengths, they knew each other's weaknesses, they knew each other's workflow already, so when they came together to form a company, it was easy peasy. So that's the trick, that's it. Just work with people that you get along with and that are skilled, and that's the end. So thank you. No, I'm just kidding, because you're like, Andrea, no, wait a second, that's not the case for me, and that's true, that's not realistic. So what do you do when you don't get along, or when you have these little breaks in communication? It's not a luxury that many of us have to get along all the time, in your life, in your company, wherever you are. Sometimes the cards just aren't laid out for us as favorably, and finding affinity amongst your team requires some effort. And in cases where you're butting heads a lot, it could require a lot of finessing. So, what then? This is where trust comes in. Time to build a foundation of trust. So this applies not only to our industry, like I said, but any relationship. Your marriage, your friendships, with your pets. Solid relationships rely on trust. This is base level for communication. Again, this is under the assumption that your teammates are skilled in their field. So your team is essentially a creative marriage. Know each other's strengths, know each other's weaknesses. It's imperative to trust that people can do their jobs. Allow the team to be free in their disciplines. So what does that look like? Well, confidence. Believe in the people that you work with. Be confident in their skill set. And also be comfortable in your own discipline so that you can allow someone else to come in and contribute to what you have to offer. Also know when to say, I don't know, or ask for help. That's trust too, being authentic with where you are. Empowerment. Empower the people on your team to do what they do, and they will move mountains for you. Coming along with that is individual authority or autonomy. Let them do what they do. Allow them to be the authority in their disciplines. So now that we've got those kind of bases down, how do you build that trust if you don't have it yet? Language. At the forefront of communication is language. Knowing how to use language and when to use language correctly is the key to successful communication. It's an art. So since I am an artist, I'm going to delve specifically into the creative relationship. Again, this applies to all relationships, but I'm going to hone in on relationships from an artist perspective. You're welcome. Take, for example, a programmer and an artist. It's like two different religions. You have the same vision, but completely different vocabulary. In order to get along, you need to take time, make an effort to speak the other person's language, learn important words, what they mean for that person, say the words that they need to hear to show that you're invested. Once this is in place, know when it's not your expertise and take a step back. So part of language is vocabulary, the words you use. Code words. For each specific relationship, get to know each other's code words and be clear that you understand each other's vocabulary. Quite often, what I think a word means is very different from what you might think it means. I'm going to use some art terms as an example. Some terminology that's important to clarify are work in progress and like a finalized piece. Here we see the work of Carla Ortiz. She's an artist at Marvel. She's worked in the game industry for quite a few years, and she's landed at Marvel now. And this is what she defines as a work in progress. It's her definition. So getting to know that this is what it looks like to her will really help with how you communicate feedback. This is that same illustration as a finalized piece. Another example of vocabulary words that are pretty important to know the definition of is realistic versus stylized, more art terms. Another personal favorite confusion word of mine is stylized specifically. A lot of times the word stylized is thrown out and people immediately envision something like cartoony, for example, Mickey Mouse, who is a stylized version of a mouse who happens to be a cartoon. But that doesn't mean that stylization is cartoon across the board. The definition of stylized is using artistic forms and conventions to create effects, not natural or spontaneous. For example, here's a 3D model of an apple next to Apple, the company's stylized version of an apple. So you see the textures are very realistic in the 3D model. It's almost like you could go out and grab it. But then the icon or the logo of Apple is very stylized. This can also be seen clearly in play in Valve's games. Left 4 Dead, for example, Zoe on the left. She's a realistic interpretation of a character next to, on the right, the thoughtfully stylized Heavy of Team Fortress 2. Notice the textures, the shapes, the proportions, and how they differ in each. Artistic decisions were made in each character's development, but they each own distinct vocabulary that is applied just as intentionally throughout the game. Knowing these distinctions will help your creative communication. So beyond words, there's also visuals. Visuals communicate as well, bless you. Miscommunication of vocabulary abounds in other inconvenient ways too, which can make things take way longer than necessary. So you know the cliche, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Yeah. Using visuals is another way to communicate. And sometimes it's more effective than just trying to explain your way through something. So to put it bluntly, sometimes you just need to stop talking and look at some pictures. Pull up good old Google. A coworker of mine told me a story about a game he was working on a while back, where using images ended up being the most effective way to communicate. The artist on his team had been looking at Miyazaki films for stylistic inspiration. They proposed this art direction to the rest of the team, but to their surprise, there was like a lot of pushback, which was kind of confusing to them. So they kept trying to explain what they meant and wasn't getting through. So after several frustrating conversations, the artists realized that they weren't getting their point across. So they stopped talking and pulled up some pictures. So what came to mind for them was this example of luxurious backgrounds that are painted in kind of like a watercolor texture that shows up in a lot of Miyazaki's films. But what came to mind for the rest of the team was this: Miyazaki's flat-celled characters. See the difference? If you'll see, the backgrounds are rendered very differently from the characters. Neither was wrong. They're both Miyazaki references, but it needed that visual distinction to get the point across of what exactly they were referencing. It was just easier to communicate with pictures than it was with words. So now that we're clear on the visual goals for the Miyazaki reference, let's focus more on clarifying goals and the importance of being on the same page with your own team, the people that you're working with. Oh, I went too fast. Hold on. Trigger happy. Okay. I didn't go back far enough. Hold on. Okay. communicating so effectively right now. Again, using language effectively is crucial in avoiding frustration down the road or clicking your trigger too fast. Be clear about goals at all times, throughout, always, through the whole process. Make sure everybody's on the same page. If goals are clear and the same for everyone on the team, the problem-solving process will more easily converge to a solution. Okay, now I can push the button. Okay, let's take a look at this triangle. Think of a product as an experience as a whole. This envelops game mechanic, art, and sound all together in one piece, in one package. So the goals for each corner of the triangle work together in tandem. So let's look more closely at the bottom left corner, the art goals. Specifically, feeling and mood. I said the word feeling, I know that's kind of scary. I'm going to say the word emotion in a minute too, so get ready for that. Nailing this down goes back to language. So ask yourself, what descriptors sum it up by using feeling words? Use emotional terms to communicate creative goals. So descriptors. I want the player to feel lost and scared. This is when the fog machine would have been really good. I want the space to feel cold and dire or lush and welcoming. Some examples of not good descriptors would be like, we need like an awesome spawn room, or just make it look really cool, which is fine, but I guarantee you what I think looks awesome is pretty different from what you think looks awesome, or maybe it's not, but you don't know what's going on up here. So in making these decisions in game design, art plays a huge role in the experience. This concept art from Portal 2 is a perfect example of how using effective descriptors can translate visually. Do you feel small and lost and scared? It's a pretty good one. Jeremy Bennett did that. Okay, now let's look at how it all works together. Take Team Fortress 2 again, for example. The art, the mechanic, and the sound, they all influence each other in that triangle to create an experience. They were developed together and converged together harmoniously. Or this awesome game, Inside. As players, we are in the art. It is integral in the experience. But art is more than just that. It's also your first experience with the game. So just look on Steam, as you all have, I'm sure. The experience of a game can be communicated instantaneously with just a thumbnail image. Instant, first read, first impression. Art is the brand of the game. It's the part of the product the player interacts with first. And this is no accident. There's a lot of problem solving that goes into artistic decisions. It's more than just emotional. It is a science. So think back to the triangle. Just like game mechanic and sound engineering, art has technical components that require years of education and experience, just like any science. At the same time, it is based on a series of problem solving, just like math. Art is problem solving. View it as you would writing code. So take a moment, sitting in your chairs, kind of trying that on. How does that change your perspective? Does that affect the way that you communicate with artists? A hang-up that I hear quite often is in actually even addressing problems. And what I mean by that is what's given is what I think is a solution instead of clearly communicating what the problem actually is. This is really limiting. When a limited solution is given, it cuts off access to a whole world of other solutions. Trust that a skilled artist is an expert in their field, that they are capable of a wide scope of solutions, beyond what you might even have in your own mind. So trust that a properly framed problem, providing that instead, will result in a confident solution. In other words, respect your fellow artist's expertise, or your fellow's expertise in general. So back to Carla. She told me a story about her days at a game company from back in the day, which no longer exists. But there's a specific programmer who felt obliged to give her daily input and just come to her desk and kind of offer her some solutions unsolicited. And, she was fine with that for a while, and then it started to get a little bit frustrating because art was absolutely not his expertise. So solutions that he had for her just didn't make any sense. So finally feeling disrespected, and now I'm not saying go and do this, just kind of sit in your chair and try it on, but this is not advice I'm giving, it's just a story. So she started, anyway, reciprocating his behavior. So she went over to his desk, started giving him loads of ideas about like the code he was writing and all this kind of stuff. And he was pretty polite until one day he just finally said, "That doesn't make any sense. Why do you keep trying to do my job?" And she was kind of like, "Yeah, well, bingo." And he got the point. So he stopped going to her desk, she stopped going to his, and I think you get the point too. So Carla's story is a good segue into the topic of feedback. Here's where trust and language come together. The thing about digital art is that the work is always displayed on the monitor behind the artist or in front of the artist, which seems like, an open invitation to come in and do some drive-by feedback or make some comments. But this is pretty stunting. It's especially when it's a work in progress. It can really kind of throw an artist off track. So ask yourself, when should I give feedback? And when should I leave someone alone? This is from a Tumblr page called Hovering Art Directors, if you haven't seen it. It's like real life photos. Also, when am I hovering? I think he might be hovering a little bit. What is the impact of me giving feedback? What's the impact of me giving feedback right now? Is this even my expertise? Create a framework for feedback to alleviate awkwardness. That's some good, solid advice. Schedule feedback. Give the artist room to create presentation-ready artwork. And also, just to wrap that all up, just know the responsibility of making the decision to give feedback, what that does for your trust relationship, how you deliver it, how you use language and words. So building and maintaining trust will give more mileage than dropping excessive feedback randomly. Work relationships are way more important than always getting it perfect. Updates can be made later, but broken trust is infinitely damaging. So here's a story, another good story to illustrate what I'm talking about. Comes from Trent at League of Geeks down in Australia. So an artist on his team was working on a card illustration for the game Armello. And he was pretty far along in the piece, but Trent at that point noticed that there was an issue with scale. Some of the elements in the illustration, the scale was off. But the problem was that the piece was already so far along in development that if Trent went ahead and gave feedback right then, it would result in basically starting over, which would take a lot more time. It would require the art be thrown away. People's feelings would get hurt. It would be kind of messy. But the reward, the scale, would be correct in the elements in the illustration. But he had another option too, which would be just to simply let it go. See what happens, maintain everybody's sanity. It's not the end of the world. So he chose to do that. He chose to let it go. And the result was this gorgeous illustration by Adam Duncan. Because it ended up being so beautiful, the issue of scale became obsolete. Trent realized a healthy relationship was way more important than getting it right. Which leads me to appreciation. Feedback does not always have to be negative. In fact, I think it's best when it's not. Appreciation is super important and often falls to the wayside. Don't let it fall to the wayside. Human beings as a whole thrive on recognition. Just look at social media like Facebook, Instagram, people taking selfies, wanting to get more likes. Everybody wants to be liked. It's just in our nature. There's nothing wrong with that. So showing appreciation for each other authentically is just as, if not more important than constructive feedback and team communication. So if you have something nice to say it. Don't assume everybody knows how much you appreciate them. They don't. I cannot stress this enough. You can try it out later if you want. You can try it on me after this talk. So this goes for everyone in your life, including your pets, including your barista. It will only fuel greater results. People will move mountains for you, and you may even get a free coffee out of it, because a person who feels appreciated will always do more than what is expected. Which leads me to nonverbal communication, the most dangerous of them all. This is part of communication, I could even say communication, that comes with a lot of baggage. Take labels, for example. Labels are one of those things. Our labels govern how we look at ourselves. They govern how people communicate with us. Each label carries a different meaning for different people. So think back to the examples I gave of stylization and the Miyazaki reference, and let's apply that to the word developer. At Valve, artists are considered developers. So let me say that again. Artists are considered developers at Valve. And I know that's not the case in most other places, but just try that on for a minute. That changes the perceived role of the artist, doesn't it? Right off the bat, this communicates that artists are equally important in game design, which is true. It unites people of different disciplines to work together. Now, this also opens up a different problem, because that assumes that everybody under that umbrella speaks the same language or thinks the same, which we've already discussed. So apply previous slides. So on your team, how do labels impact you? Are artists segregated from that title of developer? What's the result? Perhaps they are less involved in the design process, or maybe they're completely detached from the team altogether. Does it change their value in the company? So ponder this and consider. It's important to clearly define your labels as a way to communicate the role of each individual. Valve does not use fixed, specific job titles for that reason. That allows us to participate, to grow, to expand as individuals without being locked down into only writing code or only painting brick textures for eternity. Speaking of painting brick textures and writing code, let's turn our attention to process. Remember the triangle? Yes. I drew that. 10 years of experience. Each corner needs to fire at also, thank you. Thank you for the appreciation. Each corner needs to fire at all cylinders. So developing them at the same time will keep the vehicle moving forward cohesively. The result is flow and rhythm. So what does flow look like? Well, clear communication on how to break up your work amongst each other is a good starting point. Who's doing what? Find your team's dynamic and find your rhythm. BioShock 2's process was successful in achieving flow amongst their team. So let's talk about that. Let's take a look briefly. First of all, what they did was they designed the functional space as a whole. They got that down on paper. Just got the functional space down. Once that was solidified, they established the aesthetic experience using emotional descriptors, those feeling words. Then when they got that all sorted out, the general idea, they began to work together on breaking down that structure, and within each smaller space, they rinsed and repeated, did the same process over again. How do we want this experience to be in this area? Da, 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 da. And once all that was laid out, they could all break apart and go off and be confident in their disciplines to make it happen. In other words, they created a culture that supported autonomy with clear goals throughout the whole process. So when people on your team can work autonomously, it enables passion for the project. Unleashing imagination results in fun. which results in people wanting to work. I mean, this is video games. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun, playing them and making them. So when we're having fun, we can really get into our work, be it an art piece, writing code, or simply playtesting. All of this results more dependably on a good product. Allowing space for that to happen is invaluable. So let's check out the process of a wonderful company out in Denmark who is responsible for the amazing games Limbo and Inside. If you haven't seen them, check them out. And see how Autonomy opened up the opportunity to create a couple breathtaking games. So with trust and process together, it allows for autonomy. It generates flow and rhythm in communication. And the result is extraordinary. So they kind of had the same process as BioShock 2. Started off with a broad thing, broke it down to a small thing, broke apart autonomously, got it done. But this is kind of what their structured routine looks like there, just briefly. So on a daily basis, they do a 10 a.m. circle up. Talk about what was done the day before, what is planned for today, and then they break apart, and throughout the day there might be some short, unscheduled 2-3 person meetings, desk hopping, but they're really efficient and they keep it super minimal. On a weekly basis, the art team gets together, they do a playthrough, take notes, then go off, do the work. And then when shipping time comes around, they have bigger meetings, marketing strategy, bigger tasks like that, but they organize them into sprints, so it's again very efficient. And ta-da, they have some really awesome little games. So allowing space for autonomy is important. Allowing space for inspiration is just as important too. It's more important than just having an idea alone, no matter how good the idea is. So let the artists do what they're passionate about. Let them go somewhere no one has looked before, outside of what has already been done in the industry. Different cultures, different landscapes, obscure film, fine art. Team Fortress is a prime example of this. Team Fortress 2. TF2's art direction was heavily inspired by artists from the golden age of illustration, so out of the box. J.C. Leyendecker was a big one. So you can see the stylization that was sampled from his shapes, from his proportions, as well as Dean Cornwell. See the characters against the backgrounds, their shape relationships, color palette influence. Looking in new places for inspiration allowed for the creation of a very unique product that still exists today. But the key to all of this stuff, all this communication stuff, what it boils down to is respect. Respect is the culmination of all of these things put together. Respect and belief in each other's expertise allows for autonomy, inspiration, and just plain getting along. With respect for the process and one another, every interaction is easier. You will get results that surpass your wildest dreams. It makes breakdowns in communication less and less, not to mention easily remedied. Without respect, you've got yourself a recipe for a messy game of Pictionary. And if you remember, nobody wants to play Pictionary with the diva. Thank you. That was Adam Duncan again from Armello. Does anybody have any questions? Now or later? Probably not. It was pretty clear in my communication, right? Who was? Melissa King. That last one. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry, Melissa. You can yell too, if you want. Yelling is a part of communication.
What if you have a coworker that doesn't really respect what you're doing? Do you have another example in how to go about that than just going to their desk and doing the same thing that they're doing?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that, but he asked, what do you do if you have a coworker who doesn't respect what you're doing? Kind of like Carla's example, except she kind of took the brutal route and went and did the same thing back to him. Just bring it up. I feel disrespected. Let's talk about it. Right? I mean, just let him know, because he might not even know. That's the thing, is if you're just sitting there quietly, he might be clueless, and it'll at least open up kind of a different awareness for him. He listened. Thank you. Communicate. Yeah, speak up. You got to stand up for yourself too, but you don't have to take drastic measures either. Okay. Hey.
Yes, I have a pretty specific question about kind of the technical communication aspects, like where you talked about how artists will say, it's like, oh, make it like a Miyazaki film. Oh, here's what I mean by that.
Yes.
I've often used that in my own company. Like, my writer will get a lot of source art that he'll use to like illustrate what he's talking about and things. But I was wondering, is there a downside to that method? Because I remember watching this YouTube video about how in music, in movies, they'll use a thing called temp music when they're editing. And the director will put in music from some other movie, and he'll get like super attached to it, and then like the composer is like really kind of boxed in. Is there a problem sometimes in art communication pipelines where someone who's not an artist is like, okay, I kind of want it to look like this, and they just grab something and then they get fixated on that, and now you're in a box?
Totally. I mean, there's a big difference between pulling up visuals to kind of communicate what you're trying to say when the words aren't working. But if you're sampling other people's artwork and putting it in your game, or sound or anything, what happens is you start building around that. So when it comes time to put the real art or the real sound in, it doesn't fit because you were basing it off of something else. And that's where that triangle comes into play, where everything is kind of moving together at the same time. Everything is being developed together at the same time, so you can avoid that. So using pictures to communicate like what you're trying to say in, say, a meeting or something like that, totally awesome. Using other artists for inspiration, totally awesome. But putting it in your experience and then building around that, you're going to set yourself up for a lot of backtracking. And so yeah, really good question. Really good question. I think that happens a lot.
Hey, so what if you, say, got two designers who have drastically different vocabularies, like they might as well be speaking different languages? In most cases, you can work around with it. I mean, it slows down development a little bit, but you can work with it. How do you get them to agree on game terminology that's exposed to players?
Oh, that's a good idea. I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. That is a really good idea. Maybe just sit down and say, what do you pull out a thesaurus? Say, well, do these words communicate does this mean to you what it means to me? Yes. And maybe agree on a kind of vocabulary that you use together, or even just try out each other's vocabulary, see if you can get to know what they mean by that. It's kind of like learning a new language sometimes. It can be really frustrating. But once you get that kind of agreement, it just makes everything so much easier. Does that make sense? Or did you have a further part of the question, like how do you do that?
If they absolutely can't agree, like, this is what we should call this mechanic to the users, and they just...
Oh, for the users.
Yeah, they both think this is what this should be called, or the users won't understand this or that. Like,
Play test it. Play test it with some users and say, does that communicate what we're trying to do to you? I mean, you can play test terminology, you can play test art on people in your audience or your friends, or within, anybody else in your company or on your team. Say, does this communicate the tool or the gameplay that we're trying to get across?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
First off, thanks for the talk.
Thank you.
Second off,
Thank you for thanking me.
I'm not going to start a cycle.
Don't, okay, don't, good idea, because I'll keep going.
So, what do you have any advice on communicating during like deadlines or stressful situation when tempers are starting to run thin?
Don't yell. I think taking breaks is really important. Like, even if it's 15 minutes, you know, when you feel like things are getting heated, just be like, you know what, I just need to cool off. I'm gonna go over here for a minute, let's talk again in 15 minutes. Or I think keeping your composure is the most important part. Like, you can't control what the other person is doing ever, but they will feed off of how you're reacting. So if you're highly reactive, then they get defensive, then you get more defensive, and then you talk louder, and it's like this kind of culmination of climbing the ladder. So if you just can worry about what's going on in your physiology, and that will definitely affect the vibration between the two of you. So take a break, step back, drink some tea,
Okay, thank you.
lay off the caffeine, get some sleep. Sleep is really important. Does that help? Yeah, okay.
So projects could be shut down for a million and one reasons. Do you have any advice on how to, like any communicational advice on how to stop a project or like stop working with a group of people without burning any bridges?
Oh, good question. Be authentic.
Yeah, I figured.
I mean, when you're authentic with where you're at and why things aren't working for you, I mean, you're not gonna, you might hurt someone's feelings, but that you can't be responsible for that either. But I think just being really clear with why it's not working out, you want to save the project and you feel like your exit might be the way to do that, or you feel you may be more valuable elsewhere. Having an honest conversation is, I mean, the best way to go. Then you don't have to make anything up either,
Yeah.
right?
Awesome. Thanks
Yeah,
for the advice.
you're welcome.
I was wondering if you had any like favorite resources for learning more about communication, both for artists and then developers, and then also for leaders as well.
Well, get older. Just get older. Then age is a good resource. Just practice more. I think, like, test these things out. So, like, start being a witness to how you're communicating, how people are relating to you. There are a lot of awesome resources that I don't know if you want me to get into that I've listened to. It's like a lot of non-game industry type stuff. But if you want to talk to me afterwards, I can give you some without totally embarrassing myself in front of you guys. Self-help books.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for the paradigm.
Yes, thank you.
I think it was very helpful.
Good.
It was definitely helpful for artists, I think, because it helps them give a document they can give to engineers and to designers
Yeah.
to see the space they need. But as an engineer and designer, especially with younger artists, I'm having trouble articulating certain requirements that they must meet for art to be functional within a game or to meet specifications that the team has agreed upon. I think with more mature artists, they don't have this problem of that kind of like go, no-go critical feedback. Like, this does not work, please fix this. And as the artists tend to correct their own process, but younger artists tend to get hurt. They tend to get emotionally withdrawn, which creates its own tensions in the team dynamics. And so, as somebody who is possibly, I want to communicate better with these young artists. I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel alive and part of the project when they continue to make mistakes. Could you please give me some advice on how to bring them to the fold and bring it into the fold and to the table so we can actually have a constructive, process?
I would suggest approaching it as like an educational type thing. Instead of you're not doing it right, I'm going to show you how to do it right. Kind of makes a person feel bad, like they're doing something wrong. But acknowledge that they're new to the industry and say, hey, I understand it's hard to get a job in this industry without experience, so I'm here to help you with that experience. Like, here's the educational piece of working with people on a team that you don't get in school. So approaching it, I think, maybe as, like, not that you're better than them, but teaching the ropes, approach it more like an educational building block.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Is that kind of how you're doing it already?
Yeah, and sometimes it comes across as patronizing, which
Of course.
in this, that's ugh. But yeah, it's totally how I communicate to people is like these are the facts as I understand them, and that can come across very poorly. And so I guess my takeaway is that try to create a relationship where we're building something together. I'm there to help them as many times as is necessary before they understand it, and that would.
And you don't want to waste your time either doing that, right? So appreciation. Start off with appreciation. Hey, I see so much potential in you. Here's some things that are just going to skyrocket you in this industry, right? And get them excited about what you're about to show them instead of, I see what you're doing wrong and I want to fix you. It's more like, wow, you're doing great, and these are some things that are going to make you efficient and like faster at picking things up, getting stuff shipped, getting things in the game, whatever. Does that make sense? Start off with
I think with
acknowledging that
yeah.
they're good at what they do.
I think that's definitely important. I don't want to take too much time, but like in a AAA studio, a lot of times there's an art director involved, and there's a process, a bigger structure. When it's a small indie team and you have a small number of handpicked people who are there, passion is a lot of the reason why they're there.
Yes.
Like there's only so much. Do you have any advice on how much you can expect to do that before things get singed? At what point do you say this is not working out, or I don't know? Do you have any advice on that sort of tighter, smaller dynamic?
I guess it depends on the individual too, because I remember being a small artist playing, or young artist playing Pictionary, where it is just a matter of experience and taking some hard knocks sometimes and learning the hard way, because you don't want to take all your time like coddling somebody along, but you do want to let them know that there is more experience that they need to gain. So I think starting off from a perspective of understanding where they're at, that they're pretty fresh in the industry, letting them know there's more to it and you're here to help, educate, give them that experience. Their defenses will be less, or the feelings will be less hurt. And if they get hurt feelings, they can go home and deal with it, I guess. But you don't want to do that either, right?
Can I coach you on that?
Go for it. Let's go.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Does that help? I hope. Yeah.
It was, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you for the talk. It was
Thank you.
really informative.
Good.
What advice would you give for a senior concept artist transitioning to an art director role for better communicating and articulating their vision and style for a project? Not just to artists, but also the entire team.
Oh, Lord. See, we don't have art directors, so I don't have experience in that, to be honest with you.
Well, just in general, communicating a vision or style of something that is in your mind, but you've never had to really break it down for other artists before.
You've never had to, okay, so you're an artist talking to artists.
I'm asking for a friend.
You're asking for a friend. So it would be a scenario, though, where the artist is presenting to other artists?
Yeah, as the
Okay,
vision
that
holder.
makes it a lot easier. I say, go pretty soft with it and ask people to explore on it. Say, hey, take this. If it inspires you, run with it. If it doesn't inspire you, take it and bring it into a direction that would inspire you more, but with this general idea. But give them a little bit of autonomy with it too, a little authority, without going way off the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah,
Good.
thanks.
Cool. Hello.
Thanks for your talk.
Thanks.
About the diva thing, when is it best to be submissive for the sake of team morale when you're working together on a design? Like, you're really passionate and you really believe that this will help the project, but if you shut the other person down,
You don't want to shut the other person down? Why not?
well, when team morale goes down, I feel like production takes a big hit too.
So you think you're responsible for team's morale?
Yes.
No, you're not. Say your idea. It could fuel, like, somebody else could be like, oh my God, that's amazing, and think of something else, and the conversation could grow into something really big and better. And if they don't like it, then they say they don't like it. It's fine. Yeah, don't worry about other people. If you have a good idea, say it out loud. Yeah. Hope that helps. Anybody else? Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your evening.